Hey, how's your energy? And are you doing enough to manage it effectively? And this is more than just eating well and exercising. So what we're diving into today is looking at 12 ways, yes, 12 simple ways to boost your energy. Let's do it.
Welcome to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast, your source of strategies and insights to make you a better leader. Influence, improve, inspire.
Hey, it's Zoe. I'm actually in Canberra for a day. So our third week of the work-life experiment is completed, which means that I spent last week up at the snow again, skiing in the morning mostly and doing a little bit of work in the afternoon. And jury is still out as to whether this is a sustainable, repeatable, doable thing. I don't think we've got the formula right just yet in terms of how to balance work and life from the snow. But here is what I did learn. It was bloody fantastic. There's no doubt about it. It's a spectacular area. Going skiing every day is a tremendous privilege and luxury. And I'm enormously grateful that I get to do it. And enormously grateful that all the choices in my life have led me to this point where I have the freedom and the ability to do this thing, which is awesome. Now, a big part of that is energy management. And ironically, I spent the last 2 of the 3 weeks up at the snow feeling quite unwell. My horrible chest cough is just about done. There's a tiny bit of niggle left, but it's almost gone. And I think when you get sick, you come to realize how much your energy is important to you. Otherwise, you just take it for granted. I think that's totally the case. And even for someone like me who has had cancer, you think this would always be forefront of your mind. But it's amazing how quickly, as a human being, you forget about some painful experiences and carry on just as if they had never happened. Well, periodically, my body reminds me that it's not as resilient as other people's bodies, and we need to look after it better. So I was sharing my strategies with my mastermind group last week, my Leader's Edge mastermind. This one group is just starting, and they're on the beginning of their 12-month foundations program to build boundless organizations. And that's the community of leaders that I'm creating over at zoerouth.com. Or you just go into Facebook, put in Leader's Edge Mastermind or Inner Compass, and you will find some information there. In any case, let's talk energy, because I really want all of us to benefit from this. It's so core, and I just see so many leaders who are floundering at work because they haven't paid enough attention to the 4 pillars of energy that they need to look after. So what we need to do is boost our energy habits with 3 main strategies. That's give, receive, and enhance. By the way, there are going to be extensive notes on all this at the podcast show notes, zoerouth.com/podcast/energy. And there'll be a nifty little table and some dot points to help you follow around. So yeah, we're going a whole hog on this thing. I want us to nail this energy thing because everything gets better when we have our energy sorted out. All right. So the key premise around the overarching strategy for energy management is that it's a breathe in, breathe out, enhance, or give, receive, and enhance. So normally when you're talking about energy and you liken it to breathing, it's sort of breathe in, breathe out, and carry on. That's how you manage it. And the ocean ebbs and flows, etc. But I think when it comes to energy, we need to actually think about the ocean as an example, because yes, there's an ebb and there's a flow, and there's water that comes in and goes out, but periodically we need fresh water to come into the ocean to improve it, and that there's a constant circulation of good, positive, clean water energy happening in the ocean. And we are like that too. We need to ebb and flow, we need to give and receive, and from time to time we need to enhance that energy. So we're going to walk you through the 4 spheres of energy and what it looks like to give, receive, and enhance energy in each of those spheres. So the first sphere is the physical plane of energy. Well, no surprise there, right? And you probably won't learn anything too differently around this area. But have a think. As I talk through each of the give, receive, and enhance components of physical energy, think about how well you're doing in this area. So to give physical energy, we've got to give out energy. And that includes things like exercise, stretching, and breathing. So movement, giving out energy. And it goes everything from vigorous exercise through to breathing effectively. So if you nail that, you're in a good starting place. To receive energy is the next component of physical energy. And to receive energy, we do this in a couple of different ways. Rest. I know. Who knew? To receive energy, you actually need to rest. This is a lesson, a lifelong lesson, it seems, that I have yet to really consolidate. But learning how to rest effectively is critical. Nutrition is another one, and I'm not going to go through the details of nutrition. I've got other experts on board for that. But getting the right nutrition for your body is pretty important. And a third way to get to receive energy is to receive things like massage. Physical touch therapies are pretty important. Now, if we're going to enhance our physical energy, we're going to beautify. Think about this, and I love this one, actually. It's the funnest one. So to enhance physical energy, we can do facials, scrubs, like body scrubs or facial scrubs. So some of the guys are going, whatever. But guys, you're missing out. If you haven't had a facial or a scrub of some sort, get yourself down to a spa and enjoy. Beautify your physical space. It's very uplifting when you clean out your wardrobe or clean out a drawer and make it nice to look at. It that actually enhances your physical energy. And your clothes, beautify your clothes. When you put beautiful apparel on your body, you just feel better. So give, receive, and enhance. For the physical sphere are move, nourish, and beautify. Yeah, baby. I think beautify is a fun little one to play around with. The next sphere of energy is the emotional sphere of energy. To give energy in this sphere, we need to uplift others. And the way that we do this is through encouragement, through love, through support, through praise. I know, it's so simple, right? So say thank you, encourage someone, congratulate them, tell them what a good job they've done, demonstrate love, give support. That just feels good. And you receive in doing that. Now, this is a tricky one that people often get wrong in terms of receiving emotional energy, and that's to accept compliments, to accept thanks, to accept help, and to accept support. A lot of people struggle with accepting help. And it's some bizarre thing we have in our brains because that we think if we accept help from people, we feel weak. And it's just ridiculous. If you think about it, if somebody comes to you for help, how do you feel? Don't you feel elated? Don't you feel grateful? Don't you feel privileged? Don't you feel honored? Yeah. So if you resist or reject the offers of support and help, you are denying somebody else of feeling awesome. That's being very selfish. So stop it. So accepting compliments, support, and help and thanks is a really important aspect of feeding your emotional energy. To enhance your emotional energy, celebrate. It's amazing how difficult people find this one. They just don't think about it properly. One of the key tips I give my clients is to celebrate two things: outcomes and process. And the way that we do this is using a success journal. So any journal, write in it daily if you can, periodically, a couple times a week, just jot down what's happened in a celebratory way. What I mean is that you say, these are the good things that happened, and these are the outcomes things that happened. So outcomes are like milestones, achievements, things like winning a new client or finishing a report or resolving an issue. These are like outcomes. These are things that you're striving for in your work. It's also important to celebrate and recognize the process towards those outcomes. And that way you document the things that you did that contributing towards those milestones. So maybe it's you made 10 sales calls, or maybe it's you worked on the report for an hour, or maybe you did some research about that particular project. Documenting the process is actually a really healthy thing to do. It doesn't mean necessarily that it brings you results in the moment. However, when you go back and read through your success journal, a couple things come out as you do that. One, you notice what you paid attention to. One, you get to see the train of activity that leads to outcomes. And three, you get to see how you grow and evolve over time. I have a success journal that I've kept for a couple of years now, and I love looking back like 3 years to the day, say, for example, saying, wow, these were my outcomes then. These were the things that I was focusing on then to produce those results. What am I still doing? What am I doing differently? And see how far I've come. And I think that's a pretty important one from an emotional energy point of view, is to see how far you've come. I think we get so caught up in projecting forward how far we have to go. We don't take stock of exactly how far we've come. And most of us have come a very, very long way indeed. It's a great analogy when you're walking up a hill. Like, it's hard work when you're going up a hill, but it doesn't take too long before you stop, pause, and look at the height that you've gained if you're climbing a hill, how quickly it went, and how amazing the view is. So with some effort, you can get pretty spectacular results, pretty spectacular rewards by just stopping to see how far you've come and go, wow, aren't we amazing? My mastermind group last week, a couple then said, yeah, they don't really celebrate. They kind of do one thing and get on to the next. And this is a surefire way to suffer from what I call the when-then syndrome. When I get to blah, fill in the blank goal, then I will feel good. And when we have that equation running, we never get to feel good. It's always like, right, we got to that mountain, next one. It's kind of a goal sickness. You know, it's like achieve, and then you just fry yourself. The idea behind having a success journal is to enjoy the process as well as the outcome. So to use Tony Robbins and other people who paraphrase this saying, it's the journey as much as the destination. We want to be, and this is quoting Tony Robbins, we want to be achieving happily as opposed to achieving to be happy. I know, it's so zen. Okay, so that was the emotional energy sphere. Give, receive, and enhance. Uplift, accept, celebrate. The third sphere of energy is mental sphere. What's happening along in your brain. Now, to give energy in the mental sphere is about creating. And I'll just follow this up with the receiving part of that, which is to consume. So create before you consume is a paradigm or I can't remember what the saying is now. It was a concept, there you go, I picked up from Marie Forleo a couple of years ago. She did a little video and she talked about now, because she talks mainly to entrepreneurs. She said, look, you got to create before you consume, because we all get sucked into social media and just reading stuff online. It's like crack, right? All that dopamine hit you get from finding new articles and seeing who's liked your posts on Facebook and so on. She said, before you do all that, create something. And as leaders, as much as entrepreneurs, we need to think about that. How do we give energy in the create space, the mental space? It's things like setting challenges. It's things like using creative thinking strategies to address problems, to generate ideas. It's about crafting and working on projects. It's about doing the big picture thinking for your business. It's about expanding your worldview. It's about contributing perspective. It's about generating ideas that support what you're after. And these can be quests of some sort. So creating is about putting something new on the table, as opposed to just showing up, rolling your arm over and going through remote control, letting email dictate and being responsive to everybody else's concerns. So as leaders, this is a big one. I think all of my mastermind participants said the same thing. It's like, yeah, I don't do nearly enough of that. Do plenty of consuming, but not enough creating. So let's have a look at the mental energy space of consume. And let's face it, it's the easiest one on the whole thing, probably. It's entertainment, it's news, it's social media, it's reading. So I think we can be a bit more distinctive or discerning, that's what I want to say, discerning in what we consume. I've thought about this for 20 years, and I'm very filtered in terms of what I allow into my world. And I keep revising that all the time, you know. Do I need to see so many violent movies? I have a current obsession with Navy SEALs and everything military. I don't know where this came from. I'm just fascinated by it. And then I think about the implications of watching so many of these movies where people are just shot up all the time. And it's yucky. And so it's nice every once in a while, actually more often than not, to change what I'm consuming in terms of entertainment or even education. because it helps expand how my energy sits. So instead of being in constant stress, which watching people get blown up is pretty stressful, even though we get blasé about it because we see it so much in our entertainment, we don't want to become acclimatized to that as good human beings. So I watched a couple of different movies recently, which are heartfelt, uplifting movies, and that's much better. It's much better. It expands the heart. All right, so mental energy, create, consume, and how do you enhance? You learn. Oh, no, amazing. And what are you learning? You're learning things like skills, concepts, and here's a big one, worldviews. It's a challenge I often put in my keynotes is to think about somebody from the other side of the political fence that really just every time you hear them or see them, you just, you get that bitter twist of angst. And then you turn off the radio or the change channels or whatever it is you're doing so that you can ignore whatever they have to say. Perfect opportunity to challenge your worldview. When you understand how somebody comes to their position, you have a greater insight into humanity, including yourself. So the people who irk you the most are your greatest opportunity for discovery. Find out what happens, what needs to be at play for somebody to develop a worldview so contrary to your own. And just be curious about that. If you do that one thing, you'll be heaps more advanced and extraordinary as a leader. Instead of being judgmental and dismissive, being curious is going to keep you calm and centered and allow you to invite collaboration and conflict resolution that is peaceful. And as we think about Kofi Annan, who passed away this week or the last couple of days, I like to think about that too. Kofi Annan was very astute in trying to string together disparate worldviews to create one consistent one of a world where peaceful resolution is the mainstay, where people are treated with human dignity, where well-being exists for everyone. So he tried to weave those global concepts across political and cultural chasms. And I think the way that he did that was trying to understand different worldviews and finding the common narrative. So there are some great role models out there. At least don't be so dismissive of somebody when you see them espousing or spouting concepts that you find horrible or contrary to your own, for that matter. All right, so mental sphere of energy is create, consume, and learn. Up to the last sphere of energy, spiritual. And when I said spiritual to my mastermind group, there's always a couple people go, oh, that's not me, I'm, born again atheist was the expression. And spirituality has different connotations for different people. And what I mean by spiritual is I take the definition from Cindy Wigglesworth, who wrote the 21 Skills of Spiritual Intelligence. And she defines spirituality as the concept of feeling connected to something greater than self. That's it. And you can have it put in any different kind of context apart from that connection to something greater than self. It could be nature, it could be energy, it could be God, it could be religion. You can have all sorts of different names for this concept of we are part of something larger than our individual expression of life. And it's an important concept for leadership maturity because when we have that sense of greater than self, we are far more powerful as a leader because that allows us to be compassionate. It allows us to expand our sphere of influence in a way that's good for all. So spiritual energy is pretty important. So how do you give spiritual energy? You appreciate. I love appreciation because it is a gateway emotion. What I mean by that is that it's a door opener to all the best emotions you can have as a human being. Appreciation leads to gratitude, which leads to bliss, which leads to joy, which leads to exhilaration. And when you learn or practice appreciation, because we all know how to appreciate, when we exercise that muscle of appreciation, you go from little things to big things. I often teach my clients to go on appreciation rants. So as you're driving, a perfect opportunity to do this is to look around you as you're driving, paying attention to the road, of course, is to what can you appreciate about what's going on around you? Can you appreciate the drivers next to you? And have a glance over at them, if you can do it safely. And what can you appreciate about the driver next to you? Maybe they've got a nice car. Maybe they've got a great hairdo. Maybe they're bopping up and down to the radio music, and that's just fun to watch. So you can appreciate that. What can you appreciate about your own car? And maybe it's a bucket of bolts, but you know what? It's your bucket of bolts, and it served you well. So rather than defaulting to criticism or just ignoring stuff, find the little things that you can appreciate. So I'm sitting here in my client meeting office, and if I'm going to do an appreciation rant, it looks something like this. I'm looking over at my plant, and I've had this plant ever since I was at Outward Bound. So it's at least, let me just think about this now, it's probably a good 15 years old, perhaps longer, perhaps older. So it's pre-Rob, and I've been with Rob 16 years. So it might be close to 20 years old, this plant. And it's just a vibrant green. And I really appreciate its resilience because it's been in the same damn pot all this time. And it's still thriving. I mean, that's pretty remarkable, isn't it? And it's got leaves that have died and come back, and there's always something wonderful happening with it. And it's just a consistent piece of beauty in my world. So thank you, plant. I got some appreciation for you. And I'm looking around at the couches I've got in my meeting office, and they are not the most glamorous couches, let me tell you. I bought them when I first started out, which means I had no money. So they're pretty basic. They're basic brown. And they've got some funky cushions on them. And I'm appreciating the couch because I've had a lot of clients come and sit on these couches and share the most extraordinary aspects of their lives and leadership. And what a privilege it has been to be part of that journey, to be of service to them. So I'm appreciating that. And I'm appreciating the cushions that are there, which are these really cute brown and blue colors, which fit in perfectly with the carpet that I bought, which, to be honest, is a crappy carpet, which, again, I bought when I first started out. And I had to borrow money to get it, a $750 carpet, which was a huge amount of money at the time. And it's kind of got the brown and teal green coloring that my cushions have. And I have appreciation for that. Like, how lucky is that to find cushions that match this carpet? And I'm looking at my coffee table, which is a mosaic, which I spent, get this, an entire year doing. And some people said, wow, that's a great hobby. I'm like, oh my God. It put me off doing any mosaicing after that. To have that much commitment for a year to get a project done, that's just a tabletop, drove me insane. However, I persisted. So I appreciate myself for having persistence in pursuing this thing. And to be honest, it's okay. Like, it's not the most glorious piece of artwork at all. But it's mine, and I did it, and it was a good meditation at the time. And I remember some weekends just plugging away, putting pieces together. And I'm sure there's a good life lesson in that for me. In any case, I appreciate my coffee table. And I could go on and on. I could look at every object in this room and feel appreciation. I'm looking at the window. It's a sunny winter's day. I notice that there's little buds on some of the trees, which means spring is coming. I've got 2 beautiful chickens who are still alive at 8.5 years old, still laying eggs. Can you believe it? There's one right now. Which one is it? It's Blackie Greenleg. And I'm appreciating my chickens because they're good company, and she always has something interesting to say, and they're always insatiably curious. I'm not sure if you can hear her. She's having a good chat. She's standing outside my window, having a big old cluck. All right, so appreciation. Appreciation, gateway emotion, super important. So practice going on appreciation rants on little things to big things, to nature, to other people. That's probably the hardest one. What can you appreciate about other people? So that's the giving part of spiritual energy. Receiving part of spiritual energy is to notice. And it's sort of like appreciation because you need to use the notice skills to hone your sense of appreciation. But notice the things that aren't necessarily observable. It might be inner guidance. So that's nudge, that sort of intuition piece. So notice that. And notice when you get flashes of inspiration, whenever that is, whether it's driving. Sometimes I get inspiration driving, or often on the plane is my most productive time. I don't know what it is about planes. Maybe it's because I'm stripped out of I'm trapped in a chair and I can just dedicate focus time to that. but I have inspiration that comes often in planes. Notice synchronicities. Those are really cool little things, little nudges from the universe to show you that your power, the power of your thought and thinking. So notice your inner knowing and your intuition. So that's the receiving part of spiritual energy. To enhance your spiritual energy is to focus. And to learn the power of focus, you got it, those old chestnuts, meditation and mindfulness. If you haven't heard of meditation and mindfulness, yes, you have been hiding under a massive rock. We need to learn how to practice focus. Meditation is a tool to that. Mindfulness is another tool. An appreciation rant is a version of mindfulness. Okay, so there you have it. Give, receive, and enhance. The 3 ways to boost energy. The 4 spheres are physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. I'm going to put up the show notes as well as the graphic of this whole table so that you can have that on your plate. As you're listening to this, which one did you feel like you were like, yes, I'm super strong on that? And what one did you think, I don't do that at all. I really need to focus on that. So keep doing what you're doing well, and then pick one of the strategies or one of the approaches to start playing around with. So for the next week or so, pick one of the energy boosters and play with that. I'd love to hear how you go with that. I love hearing from listeners anyway. And oh, by the way, with that, I would love to get an iTunes review. There's nobody's reviewed my podcast on iTunes, which makes me feel a little bit sad for my podcast because I've been going now this is episode number 83. I'd love to have a listener put a review up there just to, validate my existence. So I appreciate that this is a complete favor I'm asking you. But if you're a listener and you like what I produce, I'd love a review, good, bad, ugly, or whatever. Just hearing from you would be awesome. And the way that you do that, you just go to iTunes, tap in podcast in the search bar, then you'll be on the podcast page then, and just put in Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast, and it should come up, and you can rate and review it. That would be super freaking awesome. The show notes in the meantime are at zoerouth.com/podcast/energy. Whew, made it through. Have a wonderful day, afternoon, or evening, wherever this podcast finds you. In the meantime, live well, lead well.